happened. So I had to delay my trip. And, fortunately, I'm home, rather than being stuck somewhere else. And my children were able to travel back and be in Singapore. And as you all know, that Singapore dealt with this pretty well in the beginning. And then, we had the problems like with other countries of migrant workers contracting. So, we are still in lockdown, but slowly the government is putting out plans to open up. And, we're hoping that that should happen soon. But I've been home, which is really fortunate.
Fortunate, yes. Yes, considering so many, we know of so many stories of where people have been striving to go home for some food on their plate, for a roof to sleep under. So yes, as you said, it is actually, we are fortunate that we are home and with our family. Definitely so. Sumita, what is this? What would you tell us about America? Whatever visuals, but you are an insider. So what do you think? How has the lockdown, how has it been there? How have people reacted to it?
Well, as you know, Flaring Tree was founded in New York, so that's where the office is. My co-founder, Christopher McLeod, who's a musician, he's based in New York, so I do hear very closely from him how the situation is there. U.S. is a large country, geographically, and the coastal areas where there are a lot of foreign travelers have been more hit than, the inner land where there are less outsiders. But the US has had a little bit of delay in how they responded to the pandemic. So they've struggled, but they've also managed to do a lot of good things. So, New York was initially very badly hit, but I hear now that the infection rates are really going down and people are beginning to think of opening up. But it's really impacted the education sector a lot, where there's a lot of uncertainty.
Correct. So same with this side, Sumita, so taking this point forward, I know that you have been like believer in arts education, and there's a lot of work that you have done and a lot of work in India as well. And I just wanted to ask you that in the academic, that's just what you mentioned. How do you think that the lockdown is going to affect children in particular in terms of academics and in terms of their emotional being?
So I see, things are pretty similar. Doesn't matter which country you're in. Uh, at different age levels, there are different age appropriate developmental needs. So definitely at younger ages, kids need play, they need physical movement and being able to interact with others. And that has been severely hampered. And obviously, children who do not have large homes or large families, will be impacted more. So, in terms of inequality and opportunity, obviously, children whose homes are not able to offer them the kind of space or nutrition or safety or mental wellness would find it challenging. But that is a challenge, I think, for all ages. But for older kids, the anxiety has been much more about exams, completing coursework, curriculum, and really worrying about, okay, what's going to happen next, especially children who are going to graduate from high school or 10th grade, as you know, better than others, that uncertainty of what's going to happen to my life, for kids, these are big things. But on the other hand, you also see so much wonderful creativity emerging from children all over the world. The kind of things that they are making and doing, and the time that they're getting to spend with their families has been a real shift. And I think in education, we need to relook at that space, the space within the home or within the community.
Sumita, I'm just inquisitive to know that what you think now with children and schools and universities, the whole everybody turning to online education. Do you think there will be a definite shift from classroom to online? Is that you would see something changing there?
Well, people have tasted something. They've been unshackled from that physical presence. But I think that one very important part of education is interaction in person. So, we must never think that that's going to vanish. No, people will always want that. And especially children will want to see other children. They don't want to be just with their parents, locked up in a house or uh,
Mm.
with just their immediate community. They would want to go out, and that there is space for growth there. But there are certain kinds of things which are better done online. And since we have tasted the possibility of it and the possibility of learning across geographical spaces, I think people are going to imagine things a little differently. So I think both things will happen, that a desire for certain kinds of in-person interactions will grow, but then people will learn to separate, this can be learned by myself, this can move out of the formal schooling structure, and people can do this themselves, probably in later stages more rather than for younger kids. So I think that a kind of bifurcation will happen. People will rethink the way education is offered.
Correct.
That could
I
happen.
think I think people are going to rethink everything about life. That's how I'm seeing it. Every relationship, every work, every engagement. I think there has been so many things have been, opened up in front of us. I think there's going to be a huge shift. So in that way, I am looking at this time as one of learning, Sumita. Believe you me, there's to be able to, just focus and see what's coming up and try and learn that, adapting to all this space, this environment, I think is the need of the hour. And in that also, Sumita, I think that you will agree with me that, as you said, that yes, children have shown a lot of resilience also, the way they understood, like your children have flown back, my children at home. I see that more than adults, they've been very patient about it. Yes, anxiety and all that is there. But I think I never thought that it is going to be this way with them. I thought there'll be tantrums and there'll be, that we can't go down to play, which is, as you already mentioned, that's an important part of a child's being. And then, no friends, no, just scooped in homes. But yes, they've also shown a lot of resilience. And Sumita, from here, if we move on to arts education in particular, I will once again reiterate in front of the audience that it was in 2015 that Sumita yeah, introduced me to her work, Flowering Tree INC, and then to Light of Life Trust in Mumbai, and gave me an opportunity to work there with the children. And that's how Artscape developed the Beyond Academics program, which is using expressive arts therapy, that is music, movement, drama, art, for mental empowerment, for value education, for teaching those participants, the beneficiary groups, about life skills. And Sumita, I remain extremely grateful for that. It was an eye opener. And thank you for you and Christopher for hand holding me through that phase. And uh, if you will just elaborate a bit on Sumita, and how come you started engaging with art education? What is it that got you interested? And what are, if you can mention some stories of impact that if you would like to share with us?
So I think arts education is a story of movement. As I moved from, as you described, from a city to a country to continents, what eventually became important is what is the movement inside into the inner world that becomes important. So when we founded Flowering Tree, we talked about this. We said, when we talk about education and we talked about children's development, everybody focuses on what's happening in the outside world. And this was 15 years ago. And through our discussions, we said, well, that's important, but what's really makes all this happen is the kind of inner development that takes place. And what is the space where this inner development takes place? I mean, one very clear area, there are different ways to approach inner development. And I think spiritual traditions do that in any case, and people might do it at home and things like that. But one area where uniformly across cultures and across time, everybody has focused on some form of inner development is the arts. And arts is not just to create beauty, which definitely is very important part, but it's really a way to create mental wellness, a way to create immunity, a way to create resilience. And when we started the work with Light of Life Trust on Anant, which is our first arts education project, Flying Tree, in 2008, a lot of families question, why would you want poorer children to learn music and dance? Well, nobody's asking that question today, because the results are there for everyone to see. As you see, the children who have that development and who have had exposure and who have learned to work with one or two skills in detail, alone, work with resistance, are able to deal with the pandemic situation, being isolated, a lot better than children who were focused on external success. So the proof of the pudding is in eating it. We've obviously never imagined that we would see a pandemic, but in the pandemic, we have seen that the years and years of work put into the inner development of children has really paid off. They have the flexibility of mind to make good choices. They know how to stay quiet with themselves. They know how to keep themselves well. And these are all very important skills, you would agree.
Absolutely. Sumita, when we start working on something from at ground zero, we don't know what is it what is it that we are going to achieve. But if I take you back to the year 2016 and the combined production of Kalpataru, and we ourselves saw that how those children transformed in front of our eyes in a couple of months. And transformed as in, and so if you remember, I used to share this with you, that is to keep telling them that this is not to become an actor, this is for you to become a better version of yourself. So that's what arts does, bringing that confidence, building resilience in you, making you self-confident to, even as you mentioned, to spend time with yourself, to be able to be with yourself, because that connection with the self, that inward journey, I think that's where arts help.
That's true.
That's just listening to music. We all know how transforming it is. I do it all the time, Sumita. When I see that, the headspace is not great, I just put on something nice, and it just takes maybe 10 minutes and I can just snap out of that. And we all tried it. So that's the power of the arts. It's so transforming and it's so, so very beautiful. Sumita, if you would touch upon your work that you do at Jaipur, Ahmedabad, you have so many areas that you're working in. Any stories of impact would you like to share from there as well?
Well, the children in Jaipur are being taught over WhatsApp. I mean, it's pretty incredible that the teachers adopted their teaching skills, and they were able to find ways to impart education, which included physical education, for children to do movement, dance, sports over WhatsApp. And this was incredible. Not that I could sit in Singapore and instruct anything, but this is the kind of creativity that iIndia teachers came up with. Mm-hmm. I saw that the Anant students who are teaching now are doing music workshops over WhatsApp. I mean, it's incredible the kind of flexibility students and teachers have displayed in being able to share the arts, share music, and share learning. And I really think it comes from developing flexible minds.
Absolutely. And as Sumita, the pandemic has actually taught us to think vertically as well as horizontally, to step out from all the tried and tested methods till now, and to just find ways of interacting, find ways of reaching out. And I think that's a great thing about the lockdown. That's one positive I feel, that it's kind of pushed us out of our comfort zones, if you know what I mean. So that's something that has really happened, I think, and that's a good thing to say. Sumita, what about mental well-being? What do you think about that space? And
This
how?
is, this is the most important aspect right now. Right now, as we see all over the world, that mental wellness is the cornerstone of all wellness. Because, when you're dealing with an immunity question, where does immunity start? Immunity starts with, how do you feel about yourself? How do you deal with your daily routine? How do you feed yourself? What movement do you do? Do you breathe healthily? These are all things which are inherent in arts education. So mental wellness is an outcome, but it is also a focus when we do the arts. I mean, for instance, just the example that you brought up about listening to music. Just the fact that children can listen to music or sing music helps their breath work, helps their ability to be silent and calm. These are skills that in a noisy world we may not value, but in a space where you're dealing with so much negative news around you, the ability to listen, the ability to stay quiet, the ability to breathe, and to sing and create joy are very, very important. It creates wellness. And as we see that this is not an aspect that has been focused on in education, in mainstream education globally, but everybody is feeling the need for it. It's the absence of mental wellness which is leading to so much social unrest. I mean, of course, there are a lot of issues of inequity, but different people deal with inequity questions differently. Someone may resort to crime and someone will go silent and maybe sing a song or share a song. Not that each situation is creating a solution, but one is healthier for the person.
Yes, Sumita. So I think that what arts education does is gives you an understanding of the self. Music by way of breath work, by way of calming you down, by teaching you ways of concentration, by teaching you ways of interacting with other people, movement, art, everything, something that you can dip inwards, what you can do by yourself. So I think that also empowers you as a person. And if you're confident of yourself, that also comes with emotional stability, and how you are, what is your reaction to a situation. As you very well mentioned, that are you getting reckless, or are you with the same situation, how are you reacting? Sumita, there's something that I was reading about, that in different countries and the different continents, how people are reacting to the lockdown. If I tell you about Bombay, where I'm staying, see, now we've said that it's like unlock 1.0. So things are opening up a bit. But I see that people are reacting to this in two ways. Either some people are extremely scared and are hesitant to even step out of their homes, and they are feeling that let me stay alive and everything else will follow in some time. And then there's a set of people who are completely reckless. And I see that in America, whatever has been happening, I see people crowding on the beaches and the malls. And so what do you think? What is the difference? What do you see of even if Singapore? How are you looking at people, and why is there so much of a change? Why are some people not even valuing their own life? But how is that happening?
So I think that, the three countries that I'm closely connected with, and actually even China, because I have family there, I'm closely connected with people in these four countries. A lot is, of regulations are to do with how the government is responding to things. So, for instance, in Singapore, you cannot go out and do things because there will be a consequence to it. In India, if there was a lockdown and there's a curfew, you have to follow it. Otherwise, the police is enforcing it. Now, in the US, that has not happened. It's not been enforced all over the country uniformly because the situation is not uniform across the country. But in the coastal cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, or New York, or New Jersey, definitely the infection rates, as I said, were higher. But it's not as though the regulatory situation is similar to the way it has been in India or Singapore. So even though we see visuals which may seem like people don't care, I think people care not so much about the pandemic, but they care more about being caught by the law. So, so in a way, we expect more consciousness than they are showing. But there are some people who are afraid, and fear is driving their actions, and they feel that something terrible will happen. Others have livelihood questions. So, I think there are different kinds of people, and people have different needs. And whatever their immediate needs are, they're responding to that. Rather than think about it or, be considerate and careful, which would be the hallmark of good immunity or good mental wellness, not everybody has that. So people are reacting. And, so we are seeing these varied responses which seem puzzling. But if you talk to them, they have a rationality about it. Somebody who needs to make a living is going to find some way to do that. It may look crazy. Someone who doesn't know how to sit quietly with themselves will want to go out to a restaurant or a bar. It doesn't matter if that is risky. Someone who needs to reach their family is going to break every single rule to try to reach some family member. So I think as many people there are different motivations. And we need to be very careful and cautious that just by their external behavior, we may not quite understand what's going on within them.
Yes, so like we saw, Sumita, that how people have walked for 9 days and nights to reach their home. So
Yeah.
that just says that if they want, that is what they're probably looking to return to the comfort zone.
Right.
And from here, Sumita, one question is that, see, we know that mental wellness or emotional management has always, in a way, been sidelined.
Yes.
Because it has never been priority.
Yeah.
And as I am working over the last 4 years in this space, I really need to push my way through. And I try and tell them that just see, even if you're going to be a good person or a good professional, I think it all starts from yourself. People know somewhere in their mind, they understand that, but they don't want to act on it. Making money or building a career or staying physically healthy, it takes priority over your mental space. Do you think, Sumita, that people will wake up to this now?
We hope so, don't we?
Yeah.
I think we will have responses of people thinking that they might wake up. Some will wake up, some might change their behaviors, but some people may slide back to old patterns. It's not that easy to change habits. So unless people have worked hard to develop healthier habits around nutrition, around wellness, around meditation, around exercise, or just being silent with themselves, it's not going to translate into life outside. Now, some people have taken that opportunity and we really don't know what's happening inside. It's only when, this phase passes we will then see the results. We will see reverberations from this phase for years to come. It's not going to be immediate.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. This is the beginning of a new life in many ways, in more ways than one. Sumita, you are home with family. And so, what is your takeout from this, personal takeout from this time, these few months?
Well, I think that one thing that has really helped me through this time and space is an attitude of gratitude. I'm really thankful for everything in my life, whether it's my home, whether it's my health, whether it's my family. Everybody has well being, and I'm really thankful for that.
So, is
And
this the way that you are keeping mentally well? Is this how you are finding your coping mechanisms in this time?
this is a very old habit for me, and it has really come into focus at this point, because I realize that I've dealt with challenges all my life through gratitude. And gratitude opens a door to looking at the possibility in anything. And right now, we've done all kinds of things that I've never done before, like grow plants, grow food, and that takes care and nurturing. And I'm not sure, I mean, I study music, so that's been going on. I have my own studies and work to do, so that's been going on. But just being together with the family is an opportunity I've not had in 23 years since I left India.
Wow.
So that's been, again, rather than see that, oh my God, we're all locked up and we can't go anywhere, I'm like, oh my God, we are together and we've never been together in 23 years. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the fact that my parents are healthy even though they are in lockdown, and they are able to have mental wellness, and they take care of themselves, and they smile and they joke and they do little positive things every day. It's wonderful to see that, but I'm blessed in that way, that no terrible things have happened around us. I know that things haven't been the same for everybody, so it opens your heart more with compassion towards people who are struggling. And so I've been helping in little ways, in whatever ways I can.
Mm.
And that's not the space of this conversation, but I think all of us also have to look at how we can contribute to community around us, what we can do. And I think people are doing a lot of things, and there's something wonderful to see in that. There's a humanity that's come alive.
I would agree on this, Sumita. There are so many stories of heroes and sheroes, and I see individuals around me that trying to do whatever they can in their little ways. It can be large, it can be small, whoever, but I see people, stepping out, people hand holding, even people sending out messages that, hi, how are you? And so I feel that that's also something that's opened up in people, a bit of compassion, empathy. And I think that's a great quality to have or to embrace, to be able to do something in our own way, whatever is possible. And Sumita, you spoke about gratitude, and that's something that I practice a lot too, because we don't, there are a lot of battles that we go through, there are a lot of hurdles that we all face. But at the end of the day, before I sleep, I always try and think about one thing that was good about the day, or something that, and then, all the any space of negativity, any space of why me, why not, why this, why that, kind of really, really dissipates and dissolves in that, yes, what about that I get. And to all the, our friends who are watching this, both from me and Sumita, we would like you to just try that, about embracing gratitude. Try whenever, see every day, each day, what do you have to be grateful about? Even it could be something that the food that you had, something that somebody sent you a kind message, or you sent somebody. Or there are little things about how the sunrise was, or how the sun was setting, some water body that you see. There are some good book that you've read, some nice music that you've had, or so many things that we should be grateful for. There are things that, in our everyday life that we miss. But if we just take a minute or two and embrace the silence and look within, there are really a lot of things to be grateful for. And I think at this time, particularly, one should focus on that as well. It'll empower us, give us that, the strength to move ahead. What do you think, Sumita?
I would agree. I mean, the gratitude of seeing beauty in the world. There's so many beautiful things. And to open our eyes, to breathe, and to look for what is beautiful and what is true and what is loving, and it's a cycle. The gratitude increases.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sumita, for your time. And we will be in touch, and my love to your family. And thank you for all the sharings. It's really empowering. It's always lovely to speak to you.
Thank you, Kanika, for inviting me here. It was wonderful to spend this time together. I mean, when we were in college 30 years ago in the canteen, we never thought that we will be talking across Zoom about such a topic during the pandemic, right?
Absolutely. That's what, Sumita, that's what we also share, that how much we are also adapting to new things, which we never thought would be, would have to be done at any one point of time. But that's also, we are grateful for that. I'm grateful for that also, that I'm able to learn so many new things. And today, that I want to also learn these things so that one can do these, adapt to new changes and move on, because the world's not going to be the same as we knew it.
But we'll face it together.
Absolutely. There, more power, Sumita, more power. Thank you, sweetheart. We'll be in touch.
Bye.
Bye.